In today's episode, we're exploring 3 devastating shark encounters. From a family vacation that turned into a nightmare off Victoria's coast to a marine biology student's fatal mistake. Let's begin with the first story, where one driver's split-second distraction led to tragedy. It was March 15, 2016, and the rugged coastline of Port Campbell stretched along Victoria's treacherous Great Ocean Road, where winding clifftop highways carved through limestone formations above the churning Southern Ocean. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the narrow roadway as dense sea mist began rolling inland from the turbulent waters below. David Wilson, a 41-year-old insurance adjuster from Melbourne, gripped the steering wheel tightly as he navigated the notorious stretch of road with his family packed into their sedan for what was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway. His wife Sarah sat in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing nervously at the steep drop-offs that appeared and disappeared through gaps in the coastal vegetation. Their 2 children, 8-year-old Emma and 12-year-old Connor, occupied the back seat, both absorbed in their electronic devices as the scenic drive continued along one of Australia's most dangerous highways. David had driven this route several times before during business trips, but never with his entire family aboard. The Wilson family had been looking forward to this trip for months, planning to explore the famous 12 Apostles rock formations and stay at a coastal resort near Lorne. David's demanding work schedule had kept him away from home frequently, and this weekend represented a rare opportunity for quality family time. The Great Ocean Road's reputation for spectacular scenery came with an equally notorious history of tragic accidents, particularly along the sections where the highway hugged the cliff faces above the ocean. The weather conditions that afternoon were particularly treacherous, with intermittent rain showers creating slick patches on the limestone-based roadway. Local authorities had issued warnings about reduced visibility and dangerous driving conditions, but many tourists continued to navigate the scenic route despite the hazards. The combination of narrow lanes, inadequate shoulder space, and the constant threat of oncoming traffic made even experienced drivers nervous on this stretch of highway. There had been several close calls during their journey, but David's confidence in his driving abilities and their tight schedule convinced him to continue. The family's excitement about reaching their destination overshadowed the growing concerns about the deteriorating weather and road conditions. The family's peaceful journey took a deadly turn when Connor dropped his gaming device between the seats and began frantically searching for it in the narrow space behind his father's seat. David made the fatal decision to assist his son while maintaining his speed through a particularly challenging section of the coastal highway. Taking his eyes off the treacherous road for what seemed like only a moment, David reached back to help Connor locate the device while simultaneously trying to navigate a sharp curve that appeared suddenly through the thickening mist. The combination of reduced visibility, wet road conditions, and his momentary inattention proved catastrophic as the vehicle's front wheels crossed the center line just as an oncoming truck appeared around the bend. David yanked the steering wheel hard to the right to avoid the collision, but overcorrected on the slippery surface, sending the sedan careening toward the cliff edge at dangerous speed. The vehicle smashed through the inadequate safety barrier with tremendous force, the metal guardrail offering little resistance as the family car became airborne over the 70-foot drop to the rocky coastline below. The sedan plummeted through the misty air for several terrifying seconds before striking a jagged rock formation that jutted from the cliff face approximately 40 feet above the churning ocean. The violent impact crumpled the vehicle's roof and shattered every window, sending glass fragments throughout the passenger compartment. The collision's tremendous force ejected Sarah through the destroyed windshield, her body tumbling through the air toward the turbulent waters below, while her family remained trapped in the mangled wreckage. Sarah's unconscious form struck the ocean surface with devastating impact, the force likely causing fatal injuries before the cold Southern Ocean waters could claim her. Her body was immediately swept into the turbulent currents, where water temperatures barely above 50 degrees and powerful undertows ensured that survival was impossible, even for an uninjured swimmer. Great white sharks are the Southern Ocean's apex predators, capable of reaching lengths of 20 feet and possessing one of the most powerful bite forces in the animal kingdom. These solitary hunters frequently patrol coastal waters and are particularly dangerous due to their opportunistic feeding behavior and incredible speed. While sightings of large sharks are rare off Victoria's coast, they are not impossible impossible, particularly near seal colonies along the rocky shoreline. The cold waters and unpredictable conditions make these areas inherently dangerous for any human who enters them. The twisted metal holding the Wilson family's vehicle gave way almost immediately under the tremendous weight and structural damage. The sedan plummeted toward the churning waters below, spinning end over end before crashing into the ocean with a tremendous splash that sent spray high into the air. The vehicle's remaining windows exploded from the impact as seawater began rushing into the passenger compartment. David and his children, already critically injured from the initial cliff impact, had no chance of survival as the freezing southern ocean water flooded their lungs and the vehicle sank rapidly toward the rocky bottom 40 feet below. The combination of massive trauma, hypothermia, and drowning claimed their lives within minutes of entering the water. Marine rescue teams arrived within an hour of receiving reports about the crash, but found only an empty section of highway where the safety barrier had been destroyed and tire marks leading to the cliff edge. Extensive underwater search operations involving divers and sonar equipment located the submerged vehicle 3 days later. Recovery efforts revealed evidence that marine scavengers had been active in the area, a grim reminder of the ocean's unforgiving nature and the predators that patrol these dangerous waters. The investigation into the Wilson family tragedy revealed that this particular section of the Great Ocean Road had been the site of numerous accidents over the years, with inadequate safety barriers and poor visibility contributing to multiple fatalities. Local residents had petitioned for improved infrastructure for decades, but budget constraints and the challenging terrain had delayed necessary upgrades. The Wilson crash became a catalyst for renewed safety initiatives, though the improvements would come too late for this family and others who had perished on this notorious stretch of highway. The Wilson family's tragic deaths prompted calls for improved safety barriers along the Great Ocean Road, but for one commercial fisherman working the dangerous waters off Cape Cod, overconfidence and financial desperation would soon lead to an equally devastating encounter with the ocean's apex predators. It was August 14, 2015, and Cape Cod's treacherous waters stretched endlessly under an increasingly threatening sky as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Michel Delacroix guided his lobster boat through the choppy seas, despite small craft advisories and reports of unusual shark activity near the local seal colonies. The 42-year-old commercial fisherman had worked these waters for over 15 years, his weathered hands and sun-damaged skin testament to countless days battling the elements in pursuit of his catch. Mikkel operated as a solo fisherman by choice, his stubborn independence having cost him both his marriage and several fishing partnerships over the years. His ex-wife had repeatedly warned him about the dangers of working alone, arguments that had contributed to their bitter separation 6 months earlier. Recent financial pressures from his divorce settlement had forced him to take greater risks, working longer hours in increasingly dangerous conditions to maintain his livelihood. The legal fees alone had drained his savings, leaving him desperate to maximize every fishing opportunity, regardless of weather conditions or safety concerns. His intimate knowledge of Cape Cod's underwater topography had led him to productive fishing grounds that other boats avoided, areas where the combination of strong currents and aggressive marine life created ideal conditions for lobster populations. These remote locations, while lucrative, placed him hours away from any potential rescue if emergencies arose. Michel had survived close calls before, including a near-drowning incident 3 years earlier that had reinforced his belief in his own invincibility on the water. The approaching storm system had already begun affecting sea conditions, with swells reaching 4 to 5 feet and winds gusting up to 30 knots. Weather services had issued warnings for small craft to return to harbor, but Mikkel's traps were loaded with lobsters, and the financial pressure of his situation made the risk seem acceptable. His fuel gauge showed barely enough diesel to make the return trip, adding another layer of urgency to his decision to continue working in deteriorating conditions. Michel's financial desperation had been building for months, with mounting legal bills and the loss of his family home creating an impossible situation. His ex-wife had received custody of their 2 children, and the court-ordered support payments consumed most of his income from fishing. The divorce had also cost him his share in a larger fishing operation, forcing him to work alone with aging equipment that he couldn't afford to replace. Every day he spent in port meant lost income, and every storm that kept him ashore pushed him deeper into debt. The lobster season had been particularly challenging that year, with changing water temperatures and increasing increased competition from larger commercial operations, reducing his catch rates significantly. Michel had watched helplessly as corporate fishing fleets moved into his traditional grounds, their modern equipment and larger crews giving them decisive advantages. His stubborn refusal to accept help or join cooperative fishing ventures had isolated him from the support network that might have saved his life. Great white sharks are the ocean's ultimate apex predators, capable of reaching lengths of 20 feet and weights exceeding 5,000 pounds. These magnificent hunters possess rows of serrated teeth designed for tearing flesh and can detect minute amounts of blood in the water from hundreds of meters away under ideal conditions. Great whites are particularly active around Cape Cod during summer months, following migrating seal populations that provide their primary food source. Their hunting strategy involves attacking from below with tremendous speed, often launching their massive bodies completely out of the water during strikes. Michel's boat engine began showing signs of trouble as he worked his trap lines in the increasingly rough seas. The 20-year-old outboard motor had been showing its age for months, but replacing it would have cost more than Michel could afford in his current financial situation. The outboard motor sputtered and coughed, losing power intermittently as salt spray and choppy conditions affected its performance. Black smoke occasionally puffed from the engine housing, indicating serious mechanical problems that Michel had been ignoring for weeks. His radio crackled with advisories urging all small craft to return to port immediately, but Michel was determined to retrieve his remaining traps before the storm arrived in full force. The weather window was closing rapidly, and he knew this might be his last chance to work these profitable grounds before being forced to seek safer waters closer to shore. When the engine finally died completely, leaving him drifting in 6-foot swells approximately 3 miles from shore, Michel made the fateful decision to attempt repairs himself rather than call for assistance. His boat's stern hung low in the water, weighed down by his catch and the bait containers that had been attracting marine life throughout the day. The strong scent of fish blood and oil had been creating a slick trail behind his boat for hours, a dinner bell for every predator in the area. Michel stripped to his waist and prepared to enter the churning water to access the outboard motor's lower unit. The decision seemed logical at the time, as the engine's problem appeared to be debris caught in the propeller housing. He secured a safety line around his waist and lowered himself over the stern, immediately feeling the shock of the cold Atlantic water as waves washed over his shoulders. The water temperature was barely 60 degrees, cold enough to quickly sap his strength if he remained submerged for extended periods. Michel had been in the water for only a few minutes, making quick dives to untangle seaweed and fishing line that had wrapped around the propeller shaft when the attack occurred. The strong current and choppy seas made his work extremely difficult, forcing him to fight to maintain his position relative to the boat while working in water that had been thoroughly scented with blood and fish oil from his bait containers. The attack came without warning from the depths below. A 16-foot great white shark, drawn by the scent trail from Michael's boat, struck with devastating precision. The massive predator had been patrolling the area when the combination of blood, oil, and Michael's movements in the water triggered its hunting instincts. The shark's jaws clamped down on his right leg just above the knee, the tremendous force instantly crushing bone and tearing through muscle and tendons with catastrophic damage. Michel's agonized scream was lost in the howling wind as the shark's initial strike caused massive trauma and blood loss. The predator released its grip after the devastating bite and retreated, following its natural pattern of striking and assessing its prey. Michael's mangled leg poured blood into the churning water as he struggled desperately to reach his boat's stern platform, but the catastrophic injuries and frigid Atlantic water quickly overwhelmed him. The safety line that should have saved his life had become fouled around the stern cleat during the attack, preventing him from pulling himself to safety. Waves and the 60-degree water rapidly sapped his remaining strength as massive blood loss from the shark bite sent him into shock. Despite his desperate attempts to stay afloat, the combination of his devastating injuries, hypothermia, and exhaustion sealed his fate within minutes. Hours later, maritime rescue authorities located Michel's empty boat drifting aimlessly in the storm-tossed waters. Torn clothing and significant amounts of blood on the stern platform provided the only evidence of the tragedy that had occurred. The investigation revealed that Michael had violated multiple safety protocols by working alone in hazardous conditions without proper emergency equipment. Despite extensive search efforts involving multiple multiple vessels and aircraft, Michael's body was never recovered from the shark-infested waters. The incident prompted new safety recommendations for commercial fishermen operating alone during adverse conditions. But for one marine biology student, academic knowledge would prove no match for nature's perfect predator. The aftermath of Michel's disappearance devastated his small fishing community, where solo operators like him were becoming increasingly rare due to economic pressures and safety concerns. His ex-wife struggled with guilt over their bitter divorce, wondering if their financial disputes had pushed him to take the fatal risks that cost him his life. Their children would grow up knowing their father had died pursuing the dangerous profession that had defined his identity, a tragic reminder of the ocean's unforgiving nature and the desperate measures people take when facing financial ruin. It was June 3rd, 2017, and the pristine waters of Shark Bay stretched endlessly under the brilliant Western Australian sun as Elena Vasquez prepared her research equipment on the sandy beach. The 23-year-old graduate student from Perth University had convinced her boyfriend Jake to accompany her on what she described as an essential data collection trip for her marine biology thesis. Her passionate dedication to shark research had impressed her professors, but her limited practical diving experience would prove insufficient for the challenges ahead. Elena's academic success had given her tremendous confidence in her theoretical knowledge of shark behavior, but she had spent far more time in laboratories and lecture halls than in actual marine environments. Her thesis advisor had initially discouraged this solo research expedition, suggesting she gain more field experience under supervision first. Elena's determination to prove her capabilities had overruled these concerns, and she had deliberately violated university safety protocols by conducting unauthorized field work without proper permits or supervision. The couple's camping trip to Shark Bay represented her first major independent research effort, and she was determined to gather data that would distinguish her thesis from typical student work. Jake, a geology student with limited marine experience, had reluctantly agreed to assist her after Elena assured him that her extensive theoretical knowledge would keep them safe. The location she had chosen for her research was a river mouth where freshwater runoff met the saltwater bay, creating the perfect conditions for diverse marine life. The area was regularly monitored by marine researchers due to its high concentration of predatory species, but Elena dismissed the established safety guidelines as overly cautious. Local fishing guides had warned her about the area's reputation for aggressive shark activity, but Elena dismissed their concerns as local superstition based on the bay's intimidating name rather than scientific observation. Elena's academic pressure had been mounting for months, with her thesis deadline approaching and her research falling behind schedule due to bureaucratic delays in obtaining proper permits for supervised fieldwork. Her professors had expressed concerns about the originality of her work, suggesting that her laboratory-based studies lacked the real-world data that would make her research stand out among her peers. The competitive nature of marine biology graduate programs had created an environment where students felt compelled to take risks to distinguish themselves academically. Her relationship with Jake had also been strained by her obsessive focus on her research, with arguments about her increasingly reckless behavior becoming more frequent. Jake had initially been supportive of her academic ambitions, but her willingness to ignore safety protocols and dismiss expert advice had created tension between them. The camping trip to Shark Bay was intended to be both a research expedition and an opportunity to repair their relationship, but Elena's single-minded focus on her thesis had overshadowed any romantic intentions. Bull sharks are among the most dangerous sharks to humans, possessing a combination of size, aggression, and adaptability that makes them formidable predators in various aquatic environments. These powerful animals can reach lengths of 11 feet and are unique among sharks for their ability to survive in both saltwater and freshwater conditions. Bull sharks are particularly territorial around river mouths and estuaries, where they hunt for fish, rays, and marine mammals. Their poor eyesight in murky water often leads to mistaken identity attacks on humans, and their powerful bite force can cause devastating injuries. Elena and Jake entered the water near a fish cleaning station where local anglers regularly discarded bait and fish scraps, creating an artificial feeding ground that attracted numerous marine predators. Recent rainfall had stirred up sediment throughout the bay, reducing underwater visibility to less than 3 feet and creating ideal conditions for ambush predators. Despite Jake's growing concerns about the murky water conditions, Elena insisted on collecting water water samples closer to the cleaning station where fish remains accumulated on the sandy bottom. She had studied bull shark territorial patterns extensively and was confident that her movements would not trigger aggressive responses from any predators in the area. Elena swam confidently through the cloudy water, her movements creating small disturbances that would register on the lateral line sensors of any nearby sharks. Her bright-colored wetsuit and erratic swimming patterns as she collected samples created exactly the type of stimuli that could trigger predatory responses from confused sharks in the murky environment. A large bull shark that had been patrolling the river mouth detected Elena's presence through the vibrations and pressure waves generated by her swimming movements. The massive predator, measuring nearly 10 feet in length, had been feeding regularly at the cleaning station and considered the area part of its established territory. The confused predator, unable to clearly identify the intruder in its territory due to the murky conditions, responded with the aggressive territoriality that makes bull sharks so dangerous to humans. Elena's movements disturbed the murky water near the fish cleaning station as she reached for a sample container that had drifted towards the bottom. The bull shark struck with devastating force from below, its massive jaws clamping down on her hip and upper thigh with bone-crushing power. The shark's triangular teeth penetrated through her wetsuit and deep into her pelvis, crushing bone and severing major blood vessels in a single catastrophic bite. The impact drove Elena several feet underwater as blood immediately clouded the already murky water. The massive wounds caused by the bull shark's powerful jaws created fatal trauma, severing critical arteries and causing rapid blood loss. Elena's body went into shock from the devastating injuries as the predator released its grip and retreated into the deeper channels of the bay. Jake, snorkeling approximately 30 feet away, heard only a brief splashing sound, followed by an ominous silence. By the time he reached Elena's last known position, only an expanding cloud of blood remained visible in the murky water. The bull shark had disappeared into the maze of channels that connected the bay to the open ocean, leaving no trace of Elena behind. Despite immediate response from maritime rescue authorities and extensive underwater search efforts involving both divers and sonar equipment, Elena's body was never recovered from the vast bay system. The search operation continued for 5 days, covering over 50 square miles of waterways and coastal areas. The research program was suspended and later relocated to safer inland study sites, while new safety protocols were implemented for all university marine research programs. Elena's death devastated her family and academic community, serving as a stark reminder that theoretical knowledge cannot replace practical experience and proper safety protocols when dealing with apex predators. Jake struggled with survivor's guilt for years after Elena's death, haunted by the knowledge that he could have prevented the tragedy by refusing to participate in her unauthorized research expedition. Elena's professors faced scrutiny for their role in creating the competitive environment that had driven her to take such dangerous risks, leading to comprehensive reforms in how universities approach marine research training and supervision. Thanks for watching. Click the next video for the next stories.